Meghan Markle crashed Valentino Garavani's funeral in Rome uninvited, with entourage and big camera crew to film for her image rehab. Security booted her fast. No respect for the dead, just her brand. Utterly classless.
Everyone's talking about how Meghan Markle didn't get an invite to the private funeral in Rome. That, my friends, is the wrong story. The real story is that her private outreach became public, and that only happens when the room wants you exposed and not included, which is bad news for Meghan Markle.
Meghan Markle is in California with her wanting to be in the UK husband, trying to get back to the UK. But what is so alarming to me is how Meghan continues to want to create these ripples in these other areas and parts of the world as she did a few days ago.
It is a lot of fun to see so much of the royal family and in such a strategic way to where we're learning a little bit more about them, but really their mission is to get these important causes out there.
We had to be creative, but today you click your fingers and you've got all these platforms beating a path to the doorway of Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace saying, yeah, we'll make it.
I remember going to the press conference when the restoration of the castle was finished, and it was announced that it had been done within the budget, within the time. The press was so disappointed.
This ripple effect happens in a lot of areas in Hollywood, people who are famous.
It's hard to tell you why I cannot stand Meghan Markle so much. After all, there are a lot of know-nothing, attention-seeking former actresses in this world. Part of it is because I do love the UK so much, and I think we effectively exported our worst cultural asset to hurt their royal family. And the other part of it, though, is the way that the media has always lapped up her obviously false claims and fed into her delusions of grandeur, which culminated in her and her husband, Prince Harry.
They have no idea where this came from, and as I told you in your—
I'm from Meghan's team. I bet you anything it came from Meghan's team. Come on.
Absolutely.
The polished image just shattered, and the embarrassment was hard to miss in the shadow of Rome's ancient basilica. On January 23rd at Santa Maria degli Angeli, the fashion world gathered in heavy, tearful silence to say goodbye to the legendary Valentino Garavani. It was a moment built on respect, grief, and history, until Meghan Markle appeared, reportedly uninvited from the jump, and showed up anyway with a full-on camera crew, pro gear, and a production-style setup like it was a content drop, not a funeral. She's known for rolling deep for brand moments and streaming projects, but this scene hit different. Multiple people close to the tightly run event, fashion insiders and on-site security, later said she wasn't on the list, and things moved fast. Inside, mourners were locked into the moment, paying quiet tribute. Anne Hathaway was seen breaking down in tears, the emotion raw and real. No filters, no flashes. Donatella Versace and Tom Ford stood solemn and still, faces heavy with loss. At the entrance, Meghan and her team were stopped cold. No soft redirect, no hush-hush compromise, just firm action. Security stepped in immediately and escorted her out before she could even step into the sacred space. This wasn't confusion or a simple protocol slip. According to reports, it was handled as a clear decision, right there at the door. To many watching, it looked like a risky play for attention during a moment meant for mourning. Showing up with cameras rolling at a private farewell raised eyebrows fast. Headlines, photo ups, and image moves seemed to clash with the mood of the day. The rejection was visible and public, and the message was loud, without a single word shouted. In that instant, the contrast between real grief and perceived self-promotion felt impossible to ignore. She pushed her luck and still came up empty, left standing outside with nothing but the sting of being shut out, while true icons honored Valentino's legacy inside. Cameras didn't catch a comeback moment. They caught rejection precision, clean, and unfiltered. To really understand how sharp this moment cut, you have to rewind to the tense build-up after Valentino Garavani passed away on January 19th at age 93, a loss that shook fashion to its core. The legendary designer, whose red carpet creations shaped decades of Hollywood glam and royal style, lay in state for days in Rome at Piazza Mignonelli. Crowds of respectful admirers and fashion loyalists showed up in silence and awe ahead of the January 23rd funeral. The service was set to be a rare collision of power, prestige, and legacy, with the industry's elite under one roof. A-list names filled the space. Anne Hathaway reportedly wept openly. Donatella Versace paid deep respect, and figures like Tom Ford, Anna Wintour, and Elizabeth Hurley stood united, many of them wearing looks crafted by Valentino himself. It was about history, gratitude, and goodbye, not clout. According to insiders, Meghan Markle saw this moment as high-value access. Sources claim she quietly but persistently tried to get in, reaching out through every possible route: mutual fashion contact, former stylists, and anyone with even a thin link to Valentino's inner circle. The approach was framed as admiration, pointing to past moments in his designs, including the red capelet during the 2019 Morocco Royal Tour and the white floral mini dress at Global Citizen Live in 2021. That included the dramatic oversized white pantsuit at the 2022 Invictus Games. But when you look closer, the story doesn't hold up. Meghan never attended Valentino's runway shows during his active years. There was no direct professional relationship, no creative partnership, no long-standing bond. This wasn't organic grief or a deep personal connection. It was a calculated move after the coveted invitation never came through. Sources say she made very intentional efforts to be included, and when silence was the only response, she didn't take the hint. Instead, she doubled down, flew to Rome, and tried to place herself into the moment anyway, crew in tow. That push crashed hard. No seat with the elite, no spotlight moment, just a very public shutdown. What followed was a blunt reminder that fashion's inner circle is tightly guarded, especially during moments where respect matters more than ambition. Forced entry doesn't fly, and funerals aren't stages. That's where this situation shifted from bold to completely out of bounds. Witnesses and event staff later described how genuine mourners arrived quietly and respectfully. Meghan didn't. According to those managing the scene under strict protocols, she approached with a full production setup, multiple professional cameras, lighting support, sound equipment. The whole operation was right there in the open. This wasn't subtle. She's known for rolling out that kind of setup for polished content, streaming projects, and lifestyle branding. In this setting, the intention felt obvious to those watching. The contrast between private mourning and visible production made the moment impossible to ignore. The goal was clear: capture staged footage on the historic steps, lock in solemn but glam shots against the mourning crowds, then flip the appearance into social media gold. Proof, at least in the planned narrative, of seamless belonging among high fashion's elite. You can almost picture the captions: carefully worded respect, legacy praise for Valentino, and soft signals of insider status, all while cameras rolled for future use. But a funeral isn't a content farm. Inside the basilica, the mood was heavy and real. Anne Hathaway's tears spoke volumes. Donatella Versace carried herself with quiet dignity. The room held the shared grief of an entire industry saying goodbye to its last emperor. The moment demanded reverence, not production value. Organizers were already managing packed crowds, tight security, and intense pressure around a high-profile farewell. When the intrusion appeared, it was recognized instantly. There was no debate, no drawn-out discussion. Security moved in without hesitation, blocked access, and escorted Meghan and her team away from the entrance, firm, fast, and final.
This wasn't about shutting out celebrities. It was about protecting a sacred goodbye from someone seen as trying to package grief for exposure by bringing a full media setup into a space meant for private reflection. Lines were crossed, and the response was decisive. In the end, the move backfired hard. The doors closed, the crew left with nothing. What was meant to look like a powerful appearance turned into a visible rejection. The moment underscored just how far the chase for visibility can go, especially in a time when authenticity matters more than performance. This wasn't a one-off mistake. According to critics, this moment fits a longer pattern: bold, relentless attempts to enter spaces where she allegedly wasn't wanted, all in pursuit of boosting her profile. One example, often cited, was her reported self-invitation to the Balenciaga Paris Fashion Week show in 2025. Even creative director Demna later noted in interviews that she worked connections through mutual friends to land a front-row seat, despite not being on the original guest list. Sources connected to that event told Vanity Fair that her team repeatedly contacted organisers, pitching it as a mutual admiration moment. Insiders, however, described it as straight opportunism. Critics say this behaviour traces back to her Suits days, where co-stars like Abigail Spencer later shared on podcasts that Meghan networked aggressively at industry events, sometimes showing up unannounced to mingle with producers and directors, always hunting the next opportunity. During her royal years, observers argue the pattern only intensified. High-profile appearances became strategic moments, like the 2019 Morocco tour, where she wore the now famous red Valentino capelet. To critics, it wasn't just fashion, it was about creating buzz-heavy images that blurred the line between official duty and personal branding. Fast forward to the 2020 Invictus Games, and she appeared in an oversized white Valentino pantsuit. The photos were polished and widely circulated, but critics slammed them as more focused on image building than the veterans the event centered on. The same conversation followed her 2021 Global Citizen live appearance, where she wore a white floral applique mini dress from the designer, another move some viewed as a calculated alignment with global icons. As her public momentum cools, critics argue these tactics feel more urgent. Reports pointing to financial strain at the Archwell Foundation, including 2025 IRS filings showing funding dropping from $9 million to under $2 million, alongside reports of significant staff turnover noted by Fox News, have fueled claims that she's clinging tightly to visibility wherever she can find it. This wasn't a one-off mistake. According to critics, this moment fits a longer pattern: bold, relentless attempts to enter spaces where she allegedly wasn't wanted, all in pursuit of boosting her profile. One example, often cited, was her reported self-invitation to the Balenciaga Paris Fashion Week show in 2025. Even creative director Demna later noted in interviews that she worked connections through mutual friends to land a front-row seat, despite not being on the original guest list. Sources connected to that event told Vanity Fair that her team repeatedly contacted organisers, pitching it as a mutual admiration moment. Insiders, however, described it as straight opportunism. Critics say this behaviour traces back to her Suits days, where co-stars like Abigail Spencer later shared on podcasts that Meghan networked aggressively at industry events, sometimes showing up unannounced to mingle with producers and directors, always hunting the next opportunity. During her royal years, observers argue the pattern only intensified. High-profile appearances became strategic moments, like the 2019 Morocco tour, where she wore the now famous red Valentino capelet. To critics, it wasn't just fashion, it was about creating buzz-heavy images that blurred the line between official duty and personal branding. Fast forward to the 2020 Invictus Games, and she appeared in an oversized white Valentino pantsuit. The photos were polished and widely circulated, but critics slammed them as more focused on image building than the veterans the event centered on. The same conversation followed her 2021 Global Citizen Live appearance, where she wore a white floral applique mini dress from the designer, another move some viewed as a calculated alignment with global icons. As her public momentum cools, critics argue these tactics feel more urgent. Reports pointing to financial strain at the Archewell Foundation, including 2025 IRS filings showing funding dropping from $9 million to under $2 million, alongside reports of significant staff turnover noted by Fox News, have fueled claims that she's clinging tightly to visibility wherever she can find it. The Valentino funeral was supposed to be different, a moment too solemn for plays and positioning. Yet, according to multiple reports, the same familiar playbook showed up again. First came the quiet lobbying through back channels, described online as discreet outreach to people in Valentino's circle. When no invitations surfaced, the next move followed fast. Arrive anyway, full camera crew in tow. The apparent plan was simple: get the shots, shape the image, turn proximity into perceived belonging. But this time, it didn't land. Fashion's inner circle pushed back hard. A clear line was drawn, and stepping over it came with consequences. Observers say it showed how old habits, from Hollywood networking to royal-era maneuvering, haven't faded, even as public rejection continues to stack up. The timing couldn't have been worse. Critics argue Meghan's brand is already under serious pressure, and being escorted away from Valentino's funeral only amplified that narrative. Industry chatter says momentum has stalled, and this public refusal poured more light on that reality. Streaming numbers added fuel to the conversation. Netflix data reportedly shows her projects struggling to gain traction. With Love, Season 1 pulled around 5.3 million views in the first half of 2025, ranking near the bottom at 389th place, according to Netflix's own engagement report. Season 2 slipped further, drawing roughly 2 million views after its August 26, 2025 release.
Total viewing hours around 9.7 million, barely registered among the platform's top content, as noted by Deadline. The holiday special, released December 3, 2025, reportedly reached just 2.4 million views and about 2.3 million hours watched. It failed to break the global top 1,000 and was widely criticized, with outlets like The Mirror labeling the performance dismal. Sources told Page 6 that Netflix has no plans for a Season 3, and insiders say the door is firmly shut on future deals. Her lifestyle push hasn't helped either. Ventures like American Riviera Orchard are reportedly struggling to gain traction, with jam jars sitting unsold and the hunt for a CEO dragging on as executives hesitate to attach their names to what The Telegraph labeled a flop empire. Hollywood support has gone quiet. Oprah hasn't publicly backed her since the 2021 interview fallout. A-listers once seen as allies, including George Clooney, have kept their distance, with no shared appearances since 2023. Then came the Kardashian snub. Kim and Kris Jenner reportedly removed photos of Meghan and Harry from Kris's 70th birthday celebration in 2025, as Page 6 revealed, a subtle but loud signal that her social currency is slipping. Public opinion numbers tell the same story. Newsweek surveys show her US favorability hovering around just 22%, down sharply from 45% in 2022. Critics point to growing perceptions of insincerity and high-maintenance behavior. Staff turnover has only added fuel, with commentators at Fox News calling the pattern abnormal after 18 departures, including key PR figures, forcing a return to crisis communications experts. As The Telegraph reported just days ago, this shrinking spotlight has turned every appearance into vital oxygen. Valentino's funeral, loaded with prestige and global attention, looked like a rare opening to slide back into relevance. The image was clear. The grieving fashion insider, the elegant duchess paying tribute, wrapped in symbolism and style, echoing moments like her 2025 birthday appearance in a bedazzled shift dress. Instead, the ejection became the headline. The moment exploded on X, where posts mocked what users called a desperate push for access. Online chatter, backed by insiders, suggested the fallout was serious. She wanted to be seen honoring Valentino, one source close to the fashion world reportedly said. But the result was the exact opposite. The narrative flipped fast. What critics labeled as crass opportunism landed at the worst possible time, during active mourning. The optics were brutal. For someone already accused by commentators of blurring charity with self-promotion, this moment felt like confirmation on a global stage. Royal commentators, including Kinsey Schofield, blasted what they described as similar Paris Fashion Week antics on podcasts, calling them inauthentic and trust-eroding. Inside the Basilica, the silence said everything. No one rushed to defend her. No sympathetic statements followed. The focus stayed exactly where organizers wanted it, on Valentino's legacy, his elegance, his decades of quiet excellence that reshaped fashion. Anne Hathaway was seen visibly breaking down in tears, captured by Daily Mail photographers at the Basilica of St. Mary and the Angels and Martyrs. Donata Versace appeared in a solemn black ensemble, paying respect without spectacle. Tom Ford remained inaccessible, while another mourner was seen consoling friends nearby, a raw moment of genuine grief. That contrast hit hard. Real sorrow versus perceived calculation. Fashion doesn't play around when it comes to authenticity, and in that space it was clear who belonged and who didn't. Fashion rewards those who serve the craft, not those who try to use it by showing up uninvited with cameras already rolling. Insiders claimed there were professional Netflix-style production setups in play. Details later leaked to outlets like OK Online. Critics say Meghan didn't just bend protocol, she crossed it. To many in the industry, it felt like an insult to the very community she says she admires. And the response wasn't personal, it was institutional. When doors close to opportunists, they stay closed. In Rome that day, they shut hard, with security escorts making sure there was zero disruption to the two-day public viewing in Piazza Mignonelli. As the New York Post described, fans lined up patiently and respectfully, honoring Valentino without spectacle or side drama. The contrast with other royals was impossible to miss. Sweden's Princess Magdalena, who wore Valentino for her 2013 wedding, posted a heartfelt Instagram tribute. Quiet, respectful, and free of self-promotion. Even Kate Middleton, often seen in Valentino-inspired pieces, has long kept her admiration understated and low-key. By comparison, critics argue Meghan's history with the brand reads differently. From the chestnut-brown blazer and trousers at a 2023 Netflix event to the long coat and studded pants worn at later outings, fashion blogs like Meghan's Mirror have described it as looking less like devotion and more like trophy collecting. Online reaction only added fuel. Social media users, including British royal commentators, labelled her push for an invite shameless, with posts pulling in thousands of likes and shares. Sources connected to the Valentino Foundation told Fox News that the funeral was about honouring 93 years of innovation, not celebrity gatecrashing. To critics, this moment echoed a wider pattern of rejection that keeps getting louder. Even within fashion, the signals have been getting colder. Demna's subtle shade in 2025 interviews about over-eagerness didn't go unnoticed, and industry fatigue has been building amid repeated controversies. Rumours like the widely circulated but later debunked claims about unpaid Chanel debts still did damage. Even false stories stick when controversy keeps circling, and this ejection only locked in her outsider status. In elite circles, proximity to drama invites scrutiny, and no A-lister wants that heat.
In Hollywood and inner circle power spaces alike, the rule is simple: authenticity beats ambition every time. Critics say Meghan has perfected the hassle but lost the heart of it. From Windsor to Montecito, the message is getting louder. Genuine respect can't be staged, filtered, or scripted. It has to be earned. The monarchy, for all its flaws, survived survives by prioritizing duty over display. That lesson is baked into centuries of tradition. Meghan's American reinvention leaned the other way: branding, visibility, non-stop content creation. But when cameras capture rejection instead of triumph, the illusion cracks wide open. This funeral fiasco became a snapshot of her current reality. The harder she pushes for relevance, the more it seems to slip through her fingers. Hollywood sees it, fashion sees it, the public sees it, and critics argue that deep down she has to see it too. The crew walked away empty-handed. The brand got no boost, no viral moment, no redemption arc. All that remained was the sting of being turned away at the very moment she needed acceptance the most. Look at the evidence stacking up. Reports rolling in through 2026 paint a rough picture of Meghan's standing. Her Netflix series with Love Meghan didn't just stumble, it flatlined by streaming standards. It failed to crack the top 1,000 most watched shows in the second half of 2025. Season 2 reportedly sank to a bleak 1,217th ranking, while the holiday special barely did better at 1,015. That's not momentum, it's a warning sign. Industry insiders are also sounding alarms about her lifestyle venture, American Riviera Orchard. Marketing experts say the brand won't survive past 2026 without massive changes. Critics have branded it a Goop-style copycat, lacking originality and emotional pull. Add in the constant staff turnover, reportedly 11 PR leads in 5 years, and royal commentators have labelled the operation high maintenance and difficult to manage. Public trust hasn't helped. Accusations tied to disputed personal claims, like who filmed certain family videos, sparked online backlash and fed skepticism. Polls now show her favourability hovering at historic lows, with outlets like Newsweek calling the situation a ratings disaster that signals deeper trouble ahead. Now, contrast that with how true icons handle legacy. Valentino Garavani's funeral drew genuine grief, not spectacle. Anne Hathaway arrived solemnly dressed in black. Anna Wintour honoured decades of collaboration with quiet respect. Donatella Versace paid tribute to a fellow visionary without cameras chasing clout. Even royals showed how it's done. Sweden's Princess Madeleine shared a heartfelt Instagram tribute, recalling how Valentino designed her wedding dress back in 2013. No self-promotion, no spotlight grab, just respect, history and authenticity, exactly what the moment demanded. That's the difference, a real personal connection built over years, not opportunistic outreach. Meghan has worn Valentino pieces before, sure. The red capelet during the 2019 Morocco tour, the floral mini dress at Global Citizen Live in 2021, the oversized pantsuit at the 2022 Invictus Games, even the bedazzled white dress for her 44th birthday in 2025. But wearing the label isn't the same as belonging to the legacy. To critics, it all rings hollow. She never attended Valentino's runway shows. There was no long-standing bond, no shared history, no genuine closeness. This ejection didn't just sting, it highlighted a bigger reckoning in a culture obsessed with personal branding. Authenticity is the real currency now, and forcing access only speeds up isolation. As one fashion insider told Harper's Bazaar, Valentino embodied elegance, and moments like this tarnish it. That sentiment spread fast. No amount of spin can rebuild trust once it cracks. The walls feel like they're closing in, and glossy PR can't patch over a moment this public. As the basilica emptied and Rome mourned its icon in quiet dignity, Meghan retreated, camera crew still in tow. The narrative twisted again, turning into another headline she didn't control. No crafted caption, no curated rollout, just a visible pullback. The illusion of effortless belonging cracked once more in an image-driven age. One last chase for a photo op at the very wrong time, and the world answered with a firm no. Now the question hangs heavy. Is this the humiliation that sparks reflection, or just another page in an endless chase for the spotlight? The evidence is stacking up fast. Old habits don't fade easily, but once doors slam shut, they rarely swing back open. Valentino's legacy will live on in elegance, restraint, and timeless grace. This episode, though, will be remembered for something far less flattering. The cameras called nothing inside the basilica, but they captured everything outside, and that footage told the real story loud and clear. Dig deeper and the pattern becomes impossible to deny. Ex-posts and tabloid reports from January 2026 buzzed with outrage, mocking what users framed as sheer desperation. Accounts like @DeltaSass piled on, with comments like, "Didn't he suffer enough when he was alive?" while British royal commentators labelled the move an absolutely shameless. The backlash spread fast and wide. Radar Online reported on her quiet outreach to Valentino's inner circle, allegedly angling for inclusion alongside A-listers like Gwyneth Paltrow and Sarah H. Parker. When that bid failed, the snub only fueled online ridicule. Reddit threads lit up, especially in communities like Saint Meghan Markle, where commenters accused her of performative feminism and called out what they saw as glaring hypocrisy. This moment didn't exist in isolation. It lined up with broader controversies rolling through 2026. Prince Harry's emotional court testimony, where he claimed the Daily Mail made Meghan's life an absolute misery, kept the spotlight burning. Meanwhile, continued staff exits raised alarms, with Fox News and Vanity Fair commentators framing the situation as a full-blown unraveling of her ventures.
Even deeply personal issues surfaced again. Reports around Thomas Markle's ongoing health struggles reignited criticism, with detractors accusing Meghan of neglect while prioritizing high-profile appearances over reconciliation. Taken together, critics say it paints a stark picture, one where ambition keeps colliding with consequence and public patience keeps running thinner by the day. And this is where the fallout really settles in, not as a single bad moment, but as a symbol of everything critics say has gone wrong. The Valentino funeral didn't just reject an appearance, it rejected a pattern, one built on pushing past boundaries, mistaking visibility for value, and assuming proximity equals acceptance. In elite circles, that assumption is fatal. Fashion insiders have been blunt. Respect is earned quietly over years, not forced in one loud afternoon with cameras rolling. Valentino's world prized restraint, loyalty, and grace. Showing up uninvited with a production crew was the opposite of everything he stood for, and insiders say that contradiction wasn't lost on anyone inside those walls. What stings most is the contrast. While true mourners slipped in quietly, focused on remembrance, Meghan's presence, however brief, became noise, and in spaces built on legacy, noise is remembered longer than silence. The escort out wasn't just a security decision, critics argue, it was a cultural one. Since then, the silence from fashion power players has been deafening. No damage control statements, no soft endorsements, no friendly leaks reframing the narrative. In this industry, silence is the verdict, and it speaks volumes. This moment now sits alongside a growing list of closed doors, streaming setbacks, brand struggles, shrinking alliances, each one reinforcing the same message. Relevance can't be forced, and respect can't be staged. Valentino's legacy walked out of that basilica untarnished, wrapped in decades of admiration. Meghan walked away with empty footage and another headline she didn't script. In a world obsessed with image, this was the harshest lesson yet. When authenticity is missing, even the biggest spotlight can't save you. What lingers now is the aftershock, not outrage, not drama, but distance, the kind that settles in when industries quietly decide someone is more trouble than they're worth. No invites, no soft landings, just a slow, unmistakable freeze that insiders say is far harder to reverse than a loud scandal. In fashion, reputation is currency. Designers remember who respects the room and who tries to dominate it. One wrong move at the wrong moment can echo for years, and critics argue this moment rang especially loud because of where it happened: a funeral, a farewell, a sacred pause in time. That context changed everything. Sources whisper that future events will be tighter, lists shorter, and access more controlled, not out of spite, but caution. No one wants their moment, their cause, or their legacy hijacked by unwanted spectacle. And once that concern takes root, doors don't just close, they lock. For Meghan, this adds another weight to an already heavy narrative.
Every move now gets filtered through skepticism. Every appearance is questioned. Is it purpose or positioning? Is it service or spotlight? Fair or not, that's the lens critics say she now faces. The irony cuts deep. In chasing belonging, she's becoming more isolated. In seeking relevance, she's triggering resistance. And in trying to control the story, she keeps handing the pen to others. Valentino's farewell reminded the world what true legacy looks like: quiet power, earned respect, and grace without effort. Standing outside those doors, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. One legacy sealed in history, the other still chasing validation in real time. And that's the final sting. In elite circles, you don't get remembered for trying harder, you get remembered for knowing when not to try at all. Now the question shifts from what happened to what happens next, because moments like this don't fade, they calcify. Insiders say the Valentino incident has already become a cautionary tale passed quietly behind closed doors, not shouted, not dramatized, just noted, remembered, and filed away. In high fashion, Hollywood, and legacy institutions, perception is everything. Once someone is labeled unpredictable or overly performative, invitations dry up fast, not out of cruelty, but self-preservation. No one wants their space, their cause, or their legacy turned into a backdrop for branding. This is where the damage deepens. The rejection wasn't loud, but it was visible, and visibility without control is the one thing her entire strategy was built to avoid. Cameras didn't capture reverence or redemption, they captured exclusion. That image travels farther than any curated post ever could. Critics argue this marks a turning point, not a collapse overnight, but a slow narrowing of lanes. Fewer platforms, fewer allies willing to vouch, fewer chances to reset the narrative. When trust erodes, access follows, and rebuilding that trust takes years of silence, not louder moves. Valentino's farewell closed with dignity intact, his legacy untouched, his circle protected. Outside, another storyline played out, one about boundaries, consequences, and the cost of forcing moments that aren't yours to claim. In the end, this wasn't about fashion, royalty, or celebrity at all. It was about restraint, about knowing when presence honors a moment and when absence speaks louder. And on that Roman morning, the message was unmistakable. Some doors don't just close, they teach, and this one delivered its lesson in full view of the world. The irony cuts deep. While working royals like King Charles stayed focused on duty, marking his 77th birthday in 2025 with speeches centered on service and cancer recovery, this move screamed self-promotion to critics. Meghan's history of protocol breaches keeps resurfacing, from announcing pregnancies at other people's weddings to repeatedly rehiring crisis PR firms after advisors walked out, as The Telegraph reported. To many observers, it paints a picture of entitlement rather than restraint. Legal analysts have even warned that her visa status could face scrutiny if Archwell's issues escalate further. The echoes of past backlash are loud, including the infamous 2020 Kardashian week from hell, when photos with Kris Jenner quietly vanished amid public criticism. Polls now show her favorability stuck around 22%, with outlets like The List citing interviews that, through sentiment analysis, actively damaged her reputation instead of rebuilding it. Prince William's cold, calculated approach, protecting the crown through distance rather than intervention, stands in sharp contrast. Insiders say it reflects a hard-earned lesson: integrity over impulse. Hustle without heart leads to isolation, and several sources told OK that her brand can't survive without real change, though history suggests that pivot may never come. Reports even claim Harry is watching from afar amid rumours of separate living arrangements, so now the forensic peel continues. Will she adapt, reset, and finally listen, or sink further into rejection? What do you think? Has Meghan crossed a line too far this time, or will she spin this into yet another comeback attempt? Drop your city and country in the comments and tell us, should she face permanent exclusion from these elite circles, or does she deserve one more chance? Hit like if you value dignity over drama, subscribe for updates as this saga unfolds, and share this video so others can weigh in too. The truth always finds its way out.